Hello, welcome to the series of Python lectures, and in this lecture we are going to discuss file handling in Python. So what is file? So file is a collection of data with the different types, categories. File may have different types like text file, executable files. So how Python handles all the files? So we are going to see what kind of methods, modules and process include in a file handling in Python. So actually file is a process of performing so many operations on a file. So first operation is opening. You need to open a file for doing operation. Then you need to write into a file, content of a file, then closing a file, then reading file if a file exists and it has content. So you can read a file character by character, all the spaces, white spaces. It can be read with a line by line. So there are separate functions for that. Then creating a file and deleting a file. So these are basic process we can do on a file. So let's see one by one that how we can do process like opening. Opening a file means just get the memory location and access that file using some function. So which function? So Python provides libraries, functions, modules for doing such kind of operations. So open function, which is useful for opening a file. So you need to provide parameters in open function. So what are the parameters? First is file name and second is mode. So what is mode? Before that we are going to have file name. So you can create a file in any path and give a file name like test.txt. Mode. You want to read a file, so R is a mode. You want to append a file, which opens a file for appending, means add number of data into an existing file. Then writing into a file, which is a write mode, W, and X will create a new file with a specified path. So how to open a file? So this is the short syntax for opening a file. Like F is a file handler, open is a function, test.txt is a file you want to open, comma, R means read mode. And then you can print all the content of a file which is specified with a print function. So this is opening a file. Now next, reading a file which has read function. So here file.read, file is a file handler which we can say as a variable used for open function. So file.read, and then which will read all the content of a file. So how can you read a file? So you need to open a file, then with the open function mention a file name which is a test.txt. You want to read a file, it means mode is R, and then C is equal to file.read and then print C. So here you can print all the content of a file using some file handler. Then writing into the file, you need to open it first, and you can use W as a mode. So file.write is a function like file.read. Same like that, file.write is a function used. So there are many ways of writing into a file. So first is A, means append a file. It means that if you have a file with a content, A will add all the content at the end of the file, and W will overwrite all the content and existing file. So you can use depending on your requirement A or W. So file is equal to open file name comma W, means writing into a file. So what you want to write is file.write and the content into double quotes, or just print file written successfully. So you can check whatever content you mention is written into a file. Creating a file. So opening, reading, writing. So how to create a file using a Python function. So X, A and W are mode which will create a file, but for the different purpose. Like X will create a file and returns an error if the file is exist. So you can create a file, but you can't create same name with the same path that will return an error if that file exists. A means append. So it will append all the content and it will create a file if that file is not exist. W will write all the content into a file and will create automatically if file is not there for writing. So these three are creation of file and how to do this. So open, mention a file name, comma X. X will create a file. Like this, open, mention a file name you want to create, and then W. This will create a file in a write mode. And then open a file, mention a file you want to create, and then A, it will create a file and it will append all the content into a file. Like this, f.write, and then the file has been created and with a more content. So like this, these are the basic ways of creation of a file. Now closing file. So you are doing all the operations, you are fetching memory location, you are creating pointers to that location. So you need to deallocate that location, and resource you should release, that is a closing a file. So closing required file.close method. So you can mention file.close method which releases all the system resources. Like system is using a file, system is doing operation, opening, reading, writing, adding a content. And there is another statement which is with statement. So if you use with statement, you instead of that manually opening and closing the file, which will automatically handle a closing. So you don't have to forcefully write a file.close. So automatically, if you use with statement, automatically all the resources get released and freeze the memory. So how to do this? So content is equal to file.read. So this is the basic read function. So for example, say if we are reading a file, then how to close it? So with open file name A. A is append as F. So file.write. So if you are writing into a file, and this will close the file automatically because we are using with. Or you can just mention file.close if you are not using with statement. So these are two ways of closing a file. Now deleting a file. So if you want to delete a file with some path mentioned, then how to delete it? So to delete a file, you must import the OS module because operating system is involved with a file, involved with a path, all the properties of a file. So there is a function which is a remove function. So os.remove function by using this function, you can delete a file. So import OS module, and then os.remove will remove the file name mentioned, like test.txt. Now the next point is setting offset in a file. So all these operations we have discussed, that is opening a file, reading, writing, appending content, closing it with a with statement, without a with statement. So these are actually basic operations we can do on a file. More what we can do is offset. What is offset now? So offset is the cursor location where the cursor is pointing. So it can be a beginning of the file, it can be in the middle of a file, and it can be the end of a file. So that is the offset of any text file, and which can work with a file handler. So offset is any position which is an integer value that is performing operations like reading and writing, which we can say it in a simple language as a pointer in a file. So there are functions which checks the offset with a file handler. So first function is a seek function, which is used to change the position of a file handler. So if a file handler is pointing to the second location, so you can mention the location into like 10th position. So that can be jumped to second to 10th position. So that is seek function. And the next function is tell method, which is used to get the current position, which is not jumping from here and there, which will tell the current position of a file handler pointer. So how to do this? So setting offset in a file. So there are three reference point or offset we can say. First is 0. If the offset is 0, it means the pointer is at the beginning of a file, which is the default value. 1 is the current position, means while reading, while writing, the pointer is pointing to the current location, it will fetch the current location. And 2 will be the end of a file. So how to get all these 0, 1, 2 pointers using seek method is you can have a file object handler, it means dot seek method, and you can mention offset, means the number, and comma where you want it to begin, your current location, your end of the file location. So you can use this. Or if you want to just know the current location of operation, you can just f.tell, which is a file object.tell function, which will return the current position of a file. So let's see some examples. So for example, let's see you are opening a file which is a test.txt in a R mode. So while doing this operation, so you can see f.seek 10, 0. So here 0 is the beginning of a file, and you can move to the 10th byte from 0. That is beginning or a start of the position. Then, for example, f.seek 5, 1. 1 means the current position. So from current position, pointer will move to 5 bytes forward. f.seek -4, 2. Here is 2 means the end of the file. So from the end of the file, which will move backward to the 4th position. So you can jump from forward, position to forward, current position to the backward. So like this, you can check positions, you can tell positions using these two methods, seek and tell. Now, traversing with the files and directory. So what is traversing? So traversing means basically includes reading writing operation from the start of the file to the end of the file. So you can travel from the file, you can travel from the directory, and then how many files, how many types of files, you can get the information of a current location, the path. So what is the traversing includes read line methods, which reads the file line by line. So now we are reading the characters, we are reading spaces, we are jumping from here and there, moving forward, moving backward. So like this, we can read entire line, which is a read line. So open a file, file name is first.txt, read mode, and then f.readLine. So this will read a line, not a character, but it will read a whole line from the file. Same, the another function read lines, which will take all the lines. So read all the lines at once and outputs them into as a list with a print function. So traveling include iterating, which is reading, writing into a file, yes, but another technique you can use is iterating over the files, which includes directories also, their structures also, their path also. So first is finding files. If you have a directory, whether that directory contains another directory, whether that directory contains some files, what are the type of files, so you can find files. Counting the number of files in a directory, which includes traveling through the directory, how many files and how many directories are there. Then Python provides methods to walk through the directories, which are existing files, which are existing directories. So you can just walk through, you can just get the information of a file. You can just get the information of a directory, how many files are there. So these include some methods like listdir method, which has a OS module obviously, then walk method, os.walk, then os.scandir method, which scans the directory and their information, and pathlib module. So let's see one by one how to find, count, and travel through the file and directories. So first, list dir method. So this will list all the content of a directory. So the os.listdir method returns all the list of files and directory present in a specified path. So if you specify a path with that directory, so how many files present in that path, this will return. So how to return? Import OS module first and then os.list all the directories. Here dot means all the root, starting from the root directory, and whatever the directory's name, file's name can be considered with that items, and then you can just print it. So print items in a current directories are for. Why we are using for? Because there are so many files. So you should iterate one by one. So for item in items, print all the items. So this will give all the information in a file, in a directory like this. So if you consider a directory which has a file, which has a new doc, which has a program.py, so it is a combination of files and directories. This will print all the information in a directory. Next is walk. os.walk method. So recursively walks through a directory with a tree structure. Yes, so if you're using walk method, you can have directory path, you can have directory name, you can have file's name. So this kind of information you can print with a walk method. So how to do this? Import OS module first and let's print all the files information with a walk, which includes root directory. Then into a root directory there may be a subdirectories and that directory may contains files in os.walk. So start from the root directory, dot means the root. For files, in files, file underscore path is equal to os.path dot join. This will join all the content. What kind of content? This will join directory path, directory name and file name from the root directory, and it will print all the information using a print function. So how the output look likes? Yes, you can see dot slash. So you can see the path. You can see dot slash file name. You can see dot slash program1.py, it is a file. And you can see dot slash directory name, that is a folder name, slash file. So you can just join all the content with a file name, with a directory name, with a directory path. So like this, you can just walk through the directory. Then next method is scan dir. So what it returns? This will return directory entry object with the additional information. What kind of additional information directory has, file has? So let's see with the example. So import OS, which is operating system module. Then print using os.scan directory. So how it looks? So let's have a with os.scan dir, starting from dot means the root directory, as entries. So whatever in a root directory, you can see all the information as entry. So what kind of information it has? For entry in entries, if that entry is a file, so check whether the content in that dot path in a root directory, whether it is a file using is underscore file method. So is it a file? So yes. So you can just have a file name, print the file name, or whether it is a directory, else if whether it is a directory using is dir function. So this will return the name of a directory. So how the output look likes? Yes. So using os.scandir file, if you have a file in that particular location, it will show you file name. If you have a directory, it will show you the directory name. And you can have information in the directories and in a file. So using a scandir method. Next is path lib module. So this will deal with a path. The path lib module provides an object-oriented approach to handling file system with a path. So this will show you output with a more easy way, that how the path included, what is the particular absolute path of a file. So you need to import first path module. From pathlib, import path module of a Python. Then start from the root directory, which is path dot, start from the root directory. Then print all the information from the root directory, which can be item, which is a file, which can be a directory. So iterate through the directory. So items are file, check whether it is a file, check whether it is a directory using isFile and iterate directory function. So this will show you all the file name and this will show you all the directory names. And this the output look like, which is a file, which is a directory, folder N is a directory, and files present in that particular path. So these are some traversing techniques included in a file handling, which provided by the Python, provided by the modules. So this is actually all about file handling. So we can see more in upcoming lectures. Thank you.